I'm not going to go through and speak to you about all these aspects because you can read about what EDV does yourselves and gives you all the essential information, blah, blah. There we go. I know for families that invariably when somebody's diagnosed with an eating disorder, they go through a real set of confusion, and I've sort of given it these very simplistic categories, but as we have the 5 stages of recovery, we have almost 6 stages of a roller coaster for parents when it comes, or any support person. It doesn't have to be a parent, it can be a friend or a partner. So, you know, it's Houston, we have a problem. Oh my God, we have an eating disorder, what do we do? Well, the natural thing to do is let's run in and see if we can fix it, which we all know doesn't really quite fit the bill. Then there's their emotional turmoil, understanding what's happening for the person with the illness, having to get to a point of acceptance, and then support. What does it look like? Now that's where it really gets scary for parents or for a partner of someone. They don't feel comfortable and know what they have to do, especially when it comes to meal support. That's one of the most terrifying areas for anybody who's a support person. I just wanted to touch briefly on some of the keys that we find most useful for families. When I'm dealing with somebody who's trying to provide support, I try to take an approach of modelling to them how they need to model and behave around the person they're trying to provide support to. So I think Mia hit on a couple of good points there when she was talking about trying to create that atmosphere of not being judged and that a calm atmosphere is useful and all that sort of approach. And a lot of families don't get that. They get anxious, as you'd appreciate, about somebody not eating their meal, and their focus becomes totally the meal and how much the person is or isn't eating. So there's a real need to educate families on what is the most useful approach to take, how to provide somebody with appropriate support at meal times. And I think there isn't sufficient information given to support people on how to do this. There's a lack of education. We've had the Butterfly and Monash talking about the sorts of support and the sort of information and guidelines that are given to staff who are working with people with eating disorders, and yet that same information is not necessarily disseminated to a support person. So yes, as has been said, when someone goes home, I'm actually not going to go through these because you've got them there, and I'll talk to what people have spoken about today. When somebody goes home from hospital or is getting support from a psychologist and a dietitian, and they have to meet the meal criteria, then they go home and the support person doesn't actually know how to provide that support. What does meal support look like? Most of the people that I have met and provided support to have never been given information on how do we sit down with somebody at a table, have them eat their meal, and stop them running off to the bathroom straight away. It's not provided. So in trying to ensure that somebody's recovery has that consistent theme, both when they're in hospital or in a day program and then at home, one of the primary keys is showing people how they need to do this. And having a sit-down meal with a family once before somebody is discharged from an inpatient setting doesn't cut it. It needs to be something that's embedded in the program and starts very early, from when the person actually enters the treatment program, whether it's day or hospital, inpatient. That education to the support people on, okay, so you need to use distractions, what's available? How would you deal with a situation when somebody refuses to eat their meal? It creates a very uncomfortable atmosphere at the table. Somebody else gets up and leaves the table. This sort of information is what needs to be shared with families. So a lot of that is what we try and give them at EDV when they either ring our helpline or if they make a time and are actually meeting with myself. We talk about the approach, whether it's around meal times or whether it's around their normal engagement before and after meal times. It's keeping that calm atmosphere. It's trying to help them look at ways that they can provide distractions to the person with the eating disorder. looking at the sorts of approach they can take in listening to what the person's saying, because that's another key thing, that a lot of support people don't really listen to what the person is saying. So I think the primary aspect for most people providing support is for them to be provided with the education and the support from the services as well, or being directed to where they can find that relevant information and get examples of how they can be an effective meal support person. The sort of guidelines that perhaps families could be given are that boundaries are important, having an expectation that the person that they're sitting down with is going to eat the meal, rather than feeling as though if they say, put the meal down and with an expectation the person's going to eat, they're worried about the person running away from the table, going off and having a self-harm session or purging anyway. It's showing them that actually being a little bit more firm about what the expectation is what is going to help their person recover, because the person is feeling as though there is a level of support at home. That's probably about all I have to say on the subject. You've got that the handout there. Are there any questions?
Helen, I'm conscious that you run groups for parents in the community on the Janet Treasure model.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you sort of, in terms of skill development for parents, what are some of the things that you teach or encourage parents to do?
Yeah. Are people familiar with the Building Hope Janet Treasure skills-based learning program? Some people are nodding. Okay, so the Building Hope programs that EDB run actually provide an increase in skills for support people. So we do look at things like your style of communication, how you relate to a person at times of challenging moments. But I think one of the very important aspects of it is getting the support person to look at how they respond. So in the Janet Treasure book, they have particular animals that we ask the support person to try and identify whether they're a jellyfish, a rhinoceros, etc., to get them to understand what their behaviours and what their feelings are. Helps them to realise that perhaps some of their responses and behaviours are less than useful in providing the support to the person that they love. So it's helping them to realise that if they're presenting to the person in an angry manner, that the person is going to think that it's whatever they're doing that's creating the problem and are going to be less likely to engage with them. It's helping them understand that, as Mia was referring to, that non-judgmental approach is what is going to be most beneficial in trying to have the person engage with them in their excuse me, in their household, talking to the families or partners about appropriate ways of communicating. So you can say that you're angry about the situation quite openly, but be very clear about what you're angry about and that there is no blame attached. There is an approach that's appropriate and going to bring forth a greater interaction, and certainly we've had that with families who have participated in the Building Hope. The changes, even at the end of 6 weeks and a little bit beyond, that they have been able to effect with their loved one is actually quite tingling to see it all take place. And it's not a lot of tweaking that usually people have to do to achieve what is most beneficial.